it into my groups also.
All right, everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Create, Engage, Succeed show. I am your co-host, Mary Nunley, and of course, we have my fabulous other co-host,
Amadeus.
Today's special guest is
Stacy Braiuca.
Awesome. So, as is the case with so many of the guests on our show, we bring on people that we have never met in real life, but have met wandering the realm of the interwebs. And for many of us, especially after 2020, more and more of our friendships evolved that way, and our business relationships. So someday I hope to meet all of our guests in person. But for today, Stacy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then we're going to pummel you with questions.
Okay. Thank you for having me, for one. And yes, one of these days we are going to meet in person. I think that's the gift of 2020, is meeting people, and then like you look really forward to this, meeting people in person. Anyway, I am known as the technology therapist and the productivity strategist. I have several different online businesses, but predominantly they all help people eliminate their technology stress by helping them use technology to increase their productivity, get more leads, and hopefully have more time for balance and self-care.
Sounds
I like
pretty
it.
good.
Mm-hmm. And just so you heard, in case you heard the clackety clack, I was tagging you in the video, and I said, the doctor is in to answer your tech questions. So a little bit of a play on Peanuts, because you are the technology therapist.
5 cents today only.
That's right. So I thought, ooh, the doctor is in. So funny that you should bring up 5 cents, because we were chatting this morning and you had brought up a really good point, which is the importance of responding to clients or potential clients that have reached out to you within 5 minutes. So I've never heard that before. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Sure. Well, as your show is Create, Engage, and Succeed, one of the secrets of succeeding is engaging with that client or that lead who has reached out to you. So if you can imagine, back in the day, you're flipping through the yellow pages. It was a big book, and people would look.
I was gonna say, Amadeus is probably a little young for that.
Well,
but...
we had phone books. Thank you. I've seen a phone book.
Okay.
I used to have to sit on them because I was so short.
Right. Well, this is besides sitting on them, this was the other use they had, was you look up phone numbers and you go down the list. If let's say you're looking for plumbers, so you go to, you look for plumbers in your area, because maybe that phone book's in different area, big metropolitan areas. So you look for the digits that are close to yours, and then you figure out which ones you're going to call, and you call the first one. And if they don't answer the phone, what are you going to do?
Call the next one. You're
going to call the next one, because it's like, and things haven't actually changed much since then. Now it's, we go down, we Google plumbers in your area, and you go down the list, right? The only difference is now is we're probably even more instant gratification society.
Mm-hmm.
So MIT did this really cool study and found out that if you can engage back with that potential lead within 5 minutes, your chances of closing them as a customer are 60 to 70% higher than if you do it after 5 minutes.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. And I'll get you that link so you can put it in the show notes, because it was just fascinating. It was like, and within 5 minutes. So you think about a variety of ways that you can do that. Message them right back. But wait, I'm in the middle of a podcast. I can't message somebody right back within 5 minutes right now.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's a bot or an email sequence that gets fired off, or some way to communicate back to them that you mean something to me. I would like to talk to you. And let's start a conversation.
It's a really good piece of advice, I think.
Yeah. So what you're saying, though, is it doesn't have to be somebody manning the phones, so to speak, waiting for it to ring. There's other ways. It's just recognizing within 5 minutes that somebody has reached out and that they're valuable to you.
Right. And
Okay.
there are, obviously that human factor kicks it up another notch.
Sure.
If you can respond to them as yourself within 5 minutes, then you're going to have even, this part I don't know for sure, but I'd imagine you're going to have a better chance, because if Amadeus, you message me on Facebook Messenger and say, hello, I'd like to learn more about, your services, about the doctor, I've got a question, and I send back, I'd love to help you. What's your biggest productivity struggle? And you answer that, and we have a conversation going already. One, you're busy in that conversation. You're probably not going to call the next name on the list.
Right.
And
That's a good
hopefully
point.
I have engaged you where you are getting good information, and, and thus it goes.
No, that's great. And just to interject, real world story. I am part of a committee planning a convention, mini convention in October. And my job is to find a room block, a group of hotel rooms that we can all stay at. And much like you said, the first hotel I called, they immediately transferred me to the sales office. I spoke to a live person. I got my information. I had my questions answered. The next hotel that I called, I got an answering machine, and no one has called me back yet. The next hotel I called, it just rang and rang and rang and rang. And I'm like, okay, we're taking them off the list, even though it was one of the top choices of the planning committee. The next one was an automated form, but I got a response within 2 hours. And I know that part of that is because they had to look up rates and stuff. So it's not like I can just answer a question. It's like, okay, you need X number of rooms, and these are the special requests that you have.
The parameters and yeah.
Right. So, but within 2 hours, then the third one or the fifth one I called was, oh, she's out of the office until today. And then I did hear back today. And what I got was, I'll take your information down and then somebody else will get back to you. So it's like, all right, well then.
What a variety of response.
Yes.
And even though it's interesting though, the one that said 2 hours, I suspect that if they at least responded at the time and said, we will get back to you within 12 hours.
And they did.
That in and of itself is a response.
Yes. And within a matter of me hitting that request, I had an email waiting for me that said, we are researching your request and we will get back to you shortly with prices and if there's rooms available. So I'm like, okay, that's reasonable.
Yeah. That's a response.
Yeah. So anyway, it was just really, I just thought it was pretty cool that it validated what you were just saying in my own experience yesterday.
And what I love about it is you've got 5 different calls for a fairly complex scenario. I mean, it's not, rocket science, but it's also not, can I order a pizza?
Right.
Although that can be rocket science sometimes too. But you got the variety of responses you got, some of them being human, but I'm sorry, they're not available right now. Well, apparently you don't mean much to them as a client, possibly, if they can't give you something of what the next steps are.
Yeah. I mean, because, 50 rooms at 200 plus a night, that's not just, it's not just pocket change. It is a nice little bit of revenue. But so let's say that I was one of those hotels that I had called that didn't provide me that 5-minute response. What are some things that you would suggest to folks, maybe at a smaller scale, like Amadeus and I are entrepreneurs, we have a small business, that we could do to make sure that that 5 minutes is being used to the best of its best of its our ability, and time is of the essence, doctor.
Right. Well, like some of the things that I spoke of is, one is I would imagine by now many people have interacted, whether they realized it or not, with a bot or a chat widget. If you have if you're able to put a chat widget in the corner of your web page, that's, and that it's visible, but it's not obtrusive, and it pops up and asks, how may I help you today? And some of those are even have enough automation behind them where you can, if the person was to ask something like, what are your hours? That would key off an answer so that they would get an answer to what the hours are, and you wouldn't have to put that in. So some of them are automated like that, and others of those, they come straight to your telephone. So you're out to lunch with your bestie and you see the, bing notification and you're like, ooh, possible money. I'm going to answer this, and
That's a good point.
so a chat widget, that potentially some of those act as bots, Facebook Messenger, Instagram Instant Messenger, LinkedIn Messenger, even email, text message. Those are all great. Google My Business has a messaging that goes straight to your phone. And people can even call you straight from that Google page. And so if you've got that set so you can answer it, or that your voice message, when you do answer it, gives them next steps and information, or mine actually has a secondary way to contact me.
And I'm just thinking, because my message says, don't bother leaving a voicemail. I'm not going to answer. Send me a text. That's probably not the best kind of message to have if you're a business owner.
Well, I think you could massage the message, actually. You could massage, because actually my voice message has something similar. I'm sorry, I'm not available. I will answer, please leave this information. But if you need me sooner, message me at m.me/Stacy Braiuca.
Got it. Okay.
So that you give them something because if they do that, I'm more likely to get back with them faster.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just, and we all have different ways. Like Amadeus, you might be an email guy, and I might be I'm like, no email, no way, but Facebook Messenger, I'll get right back to you. Or, we all have our things that we prefer and not.
That makes
But
sense.
customers or leads are going to come to us from multiple directions, and we don't want to cut off one of those directions. I mean,
makes
like
sense.
shooting yourself in the foot.
So no dead ends, no cutting things off, make it easy for the customer.
Yeah.
What if you're not on Facebook?
Then you wouldn't be, if your customers are not on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
then that may not be a place for you. Just this morning, I went to a networking meeting, a local meeting. And so quite a few brick and mortar local businesses, as opposed to online entrepreneurs, like the three of us. And their the way they get leads is somewhat different. Many of them probably are not on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
but they really, really need to be on Google My Business, because that serves local businesses really well.
Now that makes sense.
And text messages might be really good for them. A telephone, text, and Google My Business might be their three main things.
So you've mentioned Google My Business a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is it?
Picture it kind of as the new version of the Yellow Pages, in the sense that it not only has the listing of your phone number and information, it also can have, if you fill out all of the information in your profile, you've got your telephone number, you've got your hours, you've got the services you have the service area that you provide services to, your address,
Okay.
a map to you, photos. You can post things. So I then add in that social media element like Facebook, where you can post posts to it, and keep people updated on what's going on, events.
Wow.
And I think it's a really underutilized space for entrepreneurs, whereas the people who are in brick and mortar are maybe using it a little more. They might not be using it although to its full capacity.
Okay. No, that's really good to know.
Now,
So-
there are some tricks if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a brick and mortar. You've got to make sure and put in a service area,
Okay.
because otherwise they may tell you, sorry, you don't have a location. You can't use this.
So
And
so the original intent sounds like it was more for brick and mortar,
I think the original intent probably was.
and that as now more people are moving online for a variety of reasons,
Mhm.
you've got to be
COVID
able to
Put
accommodate.
the brick and mortars online,
So if somebody
Um,
wanted to get started, not necessarily with Google My Business, but with what you were just talking about in terms of sort of having a one-stop shop where you could message people, you could respond by email, you could send text messages, you could have a chat bot on your website. What would you suggest that folks look for?
Well, there are multiple products out there that do that kind of thing. There are different bots. There are, you know,
Sorry, my straw got stuck to my lip.
it's some sticky lipstick. I happen to the program I use, and actually you guys now use it too, is called Tech Foundation Pro.
Okay.
And it has its basic model has what I call a communication hub in it. And it actually brings in text messages, Google My Business, Facebook messages, does not do LinkedIn messages intrinsically yet. Instagram messages are coming. And then a chat widget on your website. You can also do text to pay on it, which is really kind of cool. So like, let's say we're at that hotel for your event, and you're like, and Mary, you and I are splitting a hotel room.
Okay.
And it's for business. And you're like, okay, your half of the hotel room is $25. We'll say they gave us a really good rate.
Okay.
Well, maybe let's go 125 because
Okay, a little bit more in the realm of realism.
we don't
Okay.
want cheap and seedy, right? So $125, that's your rate. And you can actually go in, tell it that you want to send an invoice to me, put motel room nights, 3 at
okay.
125. The dessert that I bought for you at dinner because you forgot your wallet, $7. You can list out the thing.
Oh, very cool.
You can put a time limit of how long that invoice is good for.
Okay.
And then you click enter, it goes over to Stripe, creates the invoice, comes back to you and gives you a link that you just go, boom, text message that straight back to me. I click it, pay it. It's almost like built-in Venmo inside of this communication hub.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, they just added it. And one thing I really like about the software itself is that they add new things like almost daily. It's like Christmas, waking up going, what's new today?
Well, I was gonna say, if the links to the videos that you send me are any indication, yes, it seems like there's a lot of new stuff being added regularly.
It's like a geek girl Christmas every other day.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good way to explain it.
Uh-huh.
So if somebody was thinking about something like what you're describing, whether it's something that you can support or somebody else can support, what should be like the first 5 things that you want to ask yourself before you invest in a system?
Really important, because not all systems are for everyone. One of my underlying values in my business is called start where the client is. And so one of the things I would work with a potential person, or have you think about yourself, is which of these tools do I currently use most frequently? Which ones am I comfortable with? How much do they cost? Which ones, where's my audience primarily at?
Okay.
And then talk that through at the least with a business coach or a colleague or somebody who knows the different things about tech. Mary, if somebody called you, I know you'd be a great person to talk those through with as well. Just write down the pros and cons, especially if it costs money, but also if it's free, because sometimes costing money saves you money later or brings you more money.
Yes, because free is not really free. And Amadeus and I experienced that in the world of course creation. There are some really good free or low cost platforms out there. And one of the questions that we ask our clients is, what is your vision a year or two from now? If assuming that you're successful,
Mhm.
Yes.
where do you see yourself with your course creation business 1 to 2 years from now? Because having to migrate from one
Oh,
system to another, one platform to another, can be really expensive and painful. And
very.
if you say, oh yeah, my goal is just, I want to have one course, it's going to be free, it's only going to have videos in it, and I just want it as a way to, like, share my love of daisies. Well, cool. We
Yep.
can, there's like 5 different places you can go for free to host your content,
Uh-huh.
and you'll be great. But if you're just like, I want to build an empire,
Yeah.
Mhm.
You
and
don't
every
want to build,
quarter,
you don't want to build an empire on a teeny tiny foundation,
right?
Right.
And so
because
then it's okay, so what else do you need? And much like you're saying, oftentimes when we talk to course creators, what do you have for your email? How are you going to stay in touch with your audience? The platform that we recommend does that sort of, but you still need a third party
Right.
to do some of those things.
and you bring up a good point about tool X doesn't always play with tool Y, but tool Y plays with tool Z, and tool Z plays with tool P and X, and it gets to be a challenging puzzle sometimes, even for those of us who like eat geek cereal for breakfast.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and Amadeus, yes, lives and breathes that, because he's my integrator, my, behind the scenes zapper and everything. And it's just like,
Mhm.
I can only do so much.
Mhm.
Right. I mean, to be able to find the set of tools that go together for an individual that also can grow with them, because you do not want, I just helped somebody migrate their website, and it was the second time we had migrated this person's website.
Wow.
Right. And so not only was it painful the first time, it was painful twice. And it was because they were with a tool originally that was not going to grow with them.
Hmm.
And
So I
I
think,
think
oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that's a really big thing people don't really understand too, is that it's better to have a little bit of a struggle learning a bigger tool early on when you don't need all of its components than needing to, a year or two down the road, be stuck with something very hastily cobbled together, because that's now what you're used to and everything's put together on that cobbled together thing. And now you're like, I can't change because if I do, it all explodes.
Right.
Like buying a Volks, or I'm not going to say Volkswagen, buying a little bitty car, like one of the little smart cars, and then wanting to get a boat and an RV later because you want to have whatever. Well, why not get a big truck first with a dual cab and the RV, even if or with the hopes of getting the RV later, maybe budget wise, but then you don't have to worry about, this
Right.
little smart car is not going to pull my RV.
And I think the other part of that is be realistic. Don't be overly enthusiastic. So it's like, yes, I've never created an online course before. I've never had an online business. I've never been an entrepreneur. And I took a course, and in 6 months, I'm going to be making $1 million a year. And so I want to buy all the big things with all the bells and whistles. And I have 3 people on my email list, and they're all related to me. And so it's also sometimes lowering expectations and going, okay, what's that good middle? It's just like when you buy a house, they talk about starter houses.
Right.
And then you, depending on what happens with your family, maybe you move into a bigger home,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you just stay in that starter home because you decided you really didn't want 6 cats, 5 dogs, and whatever. So, you want to be realistic too. So you're not necessarily spending $500 a month on software
Mm-hmm.
that you're not ready for, but can you grow? Is
And
that's sort of encapsulating you in alms thoughts.
I would think as entrepreneurs, we also have that same issue, I think, with buying courses
Yes.
for ourselves.
Definitely.
It used to be people would have, you have bookshelves full of books that you bought. Well, books were a little cheaper, but then it was bookshelves full of cassette tape courses. Now it's shelves full of online programs that you've purchased but have not had time to do.
Yes. And the
And
digital
but
clutter.
then But then you also, if you've purchased those and haven't had time to do them, but then you're broke and you don't have money for the technology. It's a back and forth balance between the learning materials and the doing materials.
Yes. And a mentor, so to speak, that's one of his things, is put a moratorium on buying new courses until you actually complete the ones that you've purchased and done something with it. Now,
Mhm.
if you get halfway through it and go, you know what, this really isn't what I need, or that's one thing, but stop buying stuff just because it looks good.
Right.
So on that lovely note, our, a half hour has zoomed by already, and this has been an exciting conversation. So one of the things we like to do is let our guests talk about something cool that they're working on, or some type of offer that they would like our audience to know about. And so before we wrap up, what do you have to share with our audience?
Well, we have a getting started package that kind of helps people do exactly what we've been talking about today. And I just want to go on record to say I did not plan that,
That is true.
because
She
I
did
had no
not.
idea what questions you were going to ask me. And I actually was thinking I probably should have shut up and had Amadeus ask me more questions. But he's such a generous guy. He's sitting there just being nice.
Well, I try not to interrupt people when they're talking. That is what the show's for.
That is true. That is true.
Yes. So we have a getting started package that helps people go through exactly what we're talking about. They have a 1 hour deep dive about their technology, about the budget, their literacy, their goals, their what things they already have, what things they might not have, what things I usually find out that they have duplicates and triplicates of things. And so 1 hour about that, and then another hour with one of my colleagues for a strategy session, kind of going through their client's journey and strategy and marketing. Then she and I bring our brains back together and come up with what we call a technology treatment plan.
Okay.
Which is our taking the information that we've received in those assessments and those meetings and coming up with our suggestions for some of the first things they might want to work on based on what we've heard people say they want to do and everything, right?
Right.
And then they get 5 hours of done for you concierge technology virtual assistant time.
Oh, awesome.
To enact either the things that we're suggesting or whatever other technology needs that they have.
That sounds like a great way to get started. And I did not realize that we were going to lead the conversation in this direction, but it's such an important thing for businesses to have, or even if you're thinking about starting a business, because, you know, we've helped a number of clients just like, what do I use? What should I do? And I'm just like, that's not our zone of genius. However, we can tell you what we've used, or we can tell you how we've messed up, learn from our mistakes. Let's go talk about courses.
Yeah.
So Amadeus, any parting thoughts, comments before we wrap up, and of course invite Stacy back at a later date?
I was just gonna say, I think this is really a good episode for people looking to get their online space kind of organized more so than it probably is. I think that's a really common issue most people have when they, I know we're no exception to that. Of once you get started trying to set up everything, you're like, oh, I'll take care of this after, you know, business is finished, and then nothing's set up, and you go, oh no, we need to have all this set up.
We spring clean our houses, or they say to spring clean your house. You know, it's a similar thing as keeping your tech organized.
That's a great.
It's not necessarily something you do one and done. You have that, like you said, Mary, that starter house in your beginnings, but then when it's time to move to that next step, you're gonna want to rearrange, and you know, maybe there's something you're going to need to do differently, and so it's really an ongoing process once you start it, just like many things in life. But
yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's not a like, I got this and it's going to be perfect for me for always and forever. It's, I got this, and depending on how my business goes, I may need to add elements or I may need to subtract elements, and reassessing on a regular basis, I think, is the key thing.
And one thing about being human, you know, it's guaranteed is change.
That is true. Wait, we're human? I didn't know that.
I know.
Anyway, so we are at time. What is one piece of wisdom that you would like to leave the audience with before we sign off for today?
Automate what you can so you can liberate your time for self-care.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. So on those words, this is Mary Nunley and
Amadeus.
Stacy Braiuca.
saying goodbye for today, and we'll see you next time on the Create, Engage, Succeed show. Thanks, everybody.